Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. That's what she said. And we're doing it. We're recording. We're recording this. It's going to be awesome. I am pumped for this one. My guest today is a marketing and revenue executive, a speaker, a founder, a podcaster, entrepreneur, aka total badass, named one of the top 30 marketing tech experts to watch, founder of High Bar Media, host of the MarTalk Podcast, vice president of global marketing at RFPIO. Angela Earl, welcome to the show.
Mission accomplished, Casey. I am blushing.
Did we make it happen?
And all of the listeners can all see it on my face. This is not makeup. This is actual embarrassment.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very busy. You're getting stuff done. You're crushing it left and right. I'm glad to have you here. It's our marketing.
It's only 24 hours in a day. You got to make use of them.
Is it 24? Is that how many days
I've been trying to convince the powers that be for 25, and I've failed for 41 years.
Dang it. But if we could, we would add an extra hour just to make it happen.
Then maybe I'd sleep.
Yeah. Sleep on the 25th hour. That's exactly what it is. I told everyone. I wasn't kidding. I said total badass with all these accolades. This is how you get it done. You just don't sleep. So this is our marketing leadership series. This is really, it's all about finding out what the truth is. And I know that there's a myth you're about to smash, and we actually kind of disagree a little bit. So the theme of today's show, hold on people, might be a little debate. And we kind of like threw it out there, like maybe we'll debate this thing. And then what did Angela do? She went and researched stuff. So I'm about to get demolished. So if you just want to listen or watch just to hear me just get run over like on a train track, this is the show for you. So
don't worry, we'll grab wine afterwards in true Italian style.
We will for sure grab wine afterward. All right, here you go. Thor's hammer. You got it?
Got it.
All right. Take Thor's hammer, smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Begin this epic debate once and for all.
Content does not have to be gated. That is the myth that I am choosing to bust today.
What?
It's one that's resurfaced on LinkedIn, so it's top of mind. And as you mentioned, I knew we disagreed, so I did a little bit of homework.
Oh no.
And I came across something from 1989, so that's where my research goes all the way back to. So in case you were wondering how thorough I was, I did my decades of research.
Yeah, right.
But
I know it's your old data.
Yeah, definitely. I know how provocative it is to think that content has to be gated, and how are we going to track it, and all these questions and anxiety that come up. But I genuinely feel that the gating of content is just it's old thinking. It's old thinking that if someone engages with your content, you should call them, right? And that's where it comes from, this mindset of lead generation and sales. And so I was researching, it's probably telling of my nerdy ops background that what came up in my search was a workflow diagram published by HBR in 1989. But I found it really interesting. And the most interesting part was how it wasn't that different than what sales and marketing teams do today and how they operate today. Some of the language was different. Certainly we aren't selling catalogs or mailing catalogs in SaaS today. But otherwise it could have been made yesterday.
Really? It's interesting about how time changes some things in marketing, but doesn't change other things. You know what? I'm going to put a circle around that one. I want to come back to that because we have a debate around this gated content to attend to here.
We do.
So it doesn't have to be gated. Well, I guess, I would, you mentioned something. You said, if they engage my content, we should call them. That I agree. That's terrible, right? So I think there's like a fine line. I don't want every time someone fills out a form or signs up for something that sales gets them. And you know what? Sales doesn't want that either. I for sure, even my own sales team at Cheshire Impact is like, we don't want to call your random webinar leads, right? Or your random people got a PDF.
White paper downloads.
Paper downloads. Exactly. Yeah, they don't want to call them. Sales doesn't want to call them. So if they don't want to call them, you either need to convince them that they want to call them or don't send them. Like that's really the two options, right? It's not continue to send them because sales will continue to ignore them. It's like figure out a solution. So one of the things we did is we sent less. We made them do a lot more before they get sent over. But yeah, it can't be that kind of reactionary B2C consumer type.
So if they engage with
transaction.
more content, then we should call them, is the methodology that you're going after.
Yes, more content, more content.
I
but
mean,
yeah,
business just isn't what it was in 1989. Where we have these data points, we have digital footprints, we have technology that both from a buyer's perspective, so many statistics exist. I think marketers are pretty convinced that most of the buyer's journey happens before we're even talking to them, right? Before they're on our website, before they're engaging with anything. They can do their own research, they can equip themselves, and we can, in many ways, know when they're ready to buy and who's in the market. And so this notion that we have to put a gate around the content that we're creating is really just going back to that old mindset of, why are you really gating it? If it's to send it to sales, let's do something better, right? And if it's to collect data, then there's systems and technology that exist today that when set up right, going back to the other myth, right, that we had talked about, can give you the information you're needing without getting in the way of that content journey.
Well, I guess that's one of the debate points too. Is well, okay, so we can track like Pardot and other systems. You can track that content was consumed, but you don't know who they are. So now you know that they're ready to go, but now you can't contact them, so you're stuck.
If content is your goal, you're stuck. But why not continue nurturing them on the platform that they engage the content with, right? Ryan, why not continue to educate? Marketing content is usually, it's sharing a position on a topic, or it's information about products, or making the case for your solution through things like case studies and customer stories. If they aren't clicking, raising a hand, if they aren't willing to say, call me, right, then potentially, I'll just pause it out there, that maybe we haven't done our job of convincing them just yet.
Sure. It's a very important point, and I think one of the things I'll throw into the mix, because it really, I feel like we're on the same page. We want a customer experience that's going to educate, nurture them to the end goal, which is not necessarily our marketing stats. But one of the things that I often find is when we bring up teaching marketers about forms and using Pardot marketing automation, is they're like, my CEO hates forms, right? And then oftentimes what I'll say back to them is, well, I hate forms too, but the forms I hate are the really long ones, like the 12 fields. I'm not going to fill that out. I actually had one recently that asked me, how much do I make every year? And I was like, who are you? It was required.
None of yours. Right? Was that one of the options? None of your business.
Yeah. So I put $1 billion. I put like the $1 billion answer.
Nice.
Like, I'm a
congratulations.
Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome.
When are we taking your yacht out?
Well, I was going to fly you up here, for the podcast, on my private plane, the KC-1.
Next time.
Yeah, next time. Show number 2, we'll have you fly up to my Valhalla Castle in northern New Hampshire.
Done.
Yeah, perfect. Cliff overlooking Lake Winnipesaukee. It'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. I'm bringing the wine.
Yeah, good. You bring the wine and none of that yellowtail. And we got to upscale this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but yeah, the thought was like, let's make them good forms. Let's make them, they're so tiny, and using technology, you can make it so that if you've already told me your name, I'll never ask you your name again. If you've already told me your email, I'll pre-populate your email for you. So if we already know some things about, maybe it's just like your email is pre-populated in one question, and I certainly don't ask phone number right away. Maybe that comes second. It's like dating, it's like, well, let's ask you this, and let's ask you your favorite. Are you dog person? You cat person? Then and eventually it's like, what's your phone number? But that comes later. So is that okay?
The dating analogies are running rampant in marketing. That is true. We love those dating and relationship.
Well, they're fun.
What you're reminding me of, when I first started at RFPIO, I had a conversation with our head of digital about forms. Funny enough, I told you it's such a topic that just keeps coming up, right? But I said, if we're going to put a barrier between our content and our audience, who we want to engage with it, ask them something I can't get a hold of, right? I can buy your phone number.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, nobody loves to think about it, but all of your information is readily available. phone number, email, address. A lot of times through Google searches and everything else, I can even get your home address, right? But like, it's scary to think how much personal information is out there on people. But ask something I can't find. I can't get off of, one of these data services. What's your favorite color, right? What makes you tick? What are you passionate about? What brought you here today, your motivations. If we're going to put a gate, let's make it something that we can't get otherwise, and then let's use that data to be hyper relevant or hyper personalized.
That's a great point. I've yet to hear that concept of like, look, let's be clear, we can buy all this data, and you buy enough of it.
Not the sexy part of marketing, right?
Yeah.
Nobody likes to think that, but
It's
yeah,
like, oh, really?
true.
You got their title? Guess what? I did too. I got 9,000 of them. Okay.
Who can get it faster?
Right. So
Yeah.
don't ask dumb questions. It goes back to like that form can either be a massive turnoff. My thought is just enough and get right out of the way. But you're right. It is a barrier, and then you got to make the call. I think some content though, it's like a barter. How much is this worth to you? This might save your life. Let's do a little barter here. Other content, just out there, to kind of pull you in. So I don't know. It's an interesting conversation to have, really.
It is. Yeah. Quality of content matters. If you're cranking out a ton of really low, quick, easy content, then, gates are going to be more annoying from a customer experience. If you're putting tons of resources into research and benchmarks and everything else, and it's not something that I can get from your competitor who didn't gate it, then maybe, you can have that barter and that exchange. But
Right.
even still, what are you going to do with it is the biggest question I think marketers forget to ask, right? Is it call them, like we talked about from the 1989 workflow, right? Is it, if they engage, call them? If they engage enough, call them? Or are you going to be smart about it? And are you going to allow them to continue that journey in a way that makes sense, whether they're buy ready or not?
What is the answer you think goes there?
I mean, you can see it from what we're doing at RFPIO. I'm not a believer in gates. So the only forms on our site are, would you like to see the product? Would you like to demo the product? People who get called by our SDRs and BDRs are well aware that that's going to happen because they've asked for it to happen. And beyond that, I'm a big believer that content is meant to be engaged with. It's created to be consumed. And so, yeah, we don't ask, we don't get in the way. Just put it out there.
Make it, I mean, what's the point, right? But maybe the point is to lure them in. Like lure the rings.
I mean, I can't say never. Never say never. That's what they say, right? The moment I say I'm never getting content, you're going to see me get content. So I don't want to be a hypocrite.
I was going to say, do you
I
have
won't
any
say
forms
never.
on your site? Can we go to your site?
You can go to the site, and the only forms you'll see are demo requests.
Really? So
but,
the contact us type thing. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, today that is our reality. And, maybe in 6 months we have a really awesome asset that we've invested in. And, there's some purpose. Maybe I'm going to ask your favorite color, Casey. I don't know that about you.
Totally. I think it's blue and orange. Can I say two?
Together.
Yes. It's the contrast.
Your favorite color is blue orange.
Blue orange. I need that to be in the drop-down menu, right? Like red,
I'll make
orange,
sure
green,
if we do have that question, I will have blue orange in honor of you.
Blue orange. Hey, you're talking the talk, right? It's cool. And I think people should check this out. RFPIO.com. Great example. And you've got the chat integrated on the side, and you've got content out there.
You want to talk to us, we want to talk to you, but
yeah,
we're not going to make it hard or surprising or
customer
annoying.
Stories, podcasts, and so all these things are just out there for people to consume.
It's out there. Yep.
For Google to index as well.
Agreed. Yep.
And you can't really gate podcasts anyways, so that makes sense. Yeah, you drive a hard bargain, or you make a great point here about gating. It's interesting. Now, if you were to gate one thing, because other than the main thing, which is like call me, what about like subscribing? Do you have like a newsletter? Oh, you do. Subscribe to our blog.
We do, yeah. You can subscribe to the blog, your typical RSS feed. Content I might gate, that's an interesting question. I suppose if we had a recorded product demonstration or feature demonstration, we might gate that, because if you want to see the product, then hopefully there's an exchange we can have afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do that today. That's not the type of content we have on our site, but that would be a type of content that I could very easily get behind, putting a form in front of. That way we can also make sure that the right people are viewing it and the wrong people aren't, right? Keep that competition out.
Right. And you've got all the right. So do you need nurturing then too? Do you have like nurture campaigns set up behind the scenes
We nurture through digital. So, when I think of nurturing, I think of it's just a continuation from that point of engagement in your journey. So we nurture through LinkedIn, we nurture through your typical remarketing, but we
Gotcha.
don't nurture really via email, right? We don't do batch and blast emails are not a thing of our marketing team. It's funny, in our big team meeting yesterday, I looked and pulled, we have 636 projects going on right now in marketing, and I can with confidence tell you not one single one has to do with email nurture.
Really? What? Tell me, like, why is that? And there's a strategy behind this, and you said we nurture through digital, through the other ways that people can go out there and get it.
Yeah, so people can subscribe. It's not that we're not emailing people, right? When we have a new blog or a new asset, people can opt to receive emails from us, and those definitely go out. The strategy behind it, really, people want to engage on the channels they want to engage. So if you want me in your inbox, you're going to subscribe and you're going to tell me that. If you want to engage with content on LinkedIn, right? Me personally, it's where I get a lot of my content is on LinkedIn. Then your best bet is to find me there. Right? If you start spamming me in my inbox, the first thing I'm going to do is unsubscribe. And then when you want to get a hold of me, I'm going to have unsubscribed, right? And
you can't.
You can't. And so maybe it's saving that opportunity for the right moment. When we want to reach out to them, that way we haven't offended them. We've engaged them and been a helpful resource on the channels they want to consume on.
Yeah. Well, it's a refreshing outlook. Obviously I do a lot of talking about email. I actually just got off a webinar on how to do better email. But it's
interesting.
It's a great point that it doesn't always have to be, one particular kind of method of doing it. Now, I would wonder, and this gives people freedom to control the process themselves. What would you say to the fact that, sales is sales for a reason, because somebody's got to ask for the business. Someone's got to sort of like push the thing along. And what if they're lazy or if they've forgotten? How do we remind them to come back? You mentioned retargeting. So is that the way that you remind them, you stay top of mind?
Yeah. So what I'm describing is their marketing journey, right? And that's all the way through pipeline creation for us. Our SDRs live in marketing. So it's truthfully all the way until pipeline. And in that time, we nurture through retargeting and different digital channels that way. After you have a deal, I'm sure our sales team is emailing people, right? I'm under no guise that our entire sales process is not without email. I'm sure they are.
Oh yeah.
But for the data people that would say, well, how are you going to prove it? Marketing at RFPIO generates 90% of our pipeline.
Really?
So what we're doing is working for us. I don't know if it will work for everybody, and I can't say, I'm not in charge of everybody's strategy, but our strategy is definitely working.
See, that's what I love about marketing is that, it could be my idea, your idea, whose idea, anyone's idea, but like try it, see what happens and test. And to your point, if it's working, cool. It like doesn't have to be some sort of like ideological thing. It's like, this is working for us. So I don't know, do it if you want. And that's what these podcasts can be really cool.
Try it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I don't know. Now, 636 projects seems like a lot of projects.
There's a lot of subtasks and stuff in there. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, we've got a lot going on. And it is a busy team.
Email nurturing. It's so cool.
None of it is not one single bit of it.
Do you have marketing
Maybe I'll
automation?
have to start a project just to tell you.
Right. Do you have marketing automation or any of those tools like that?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a pretty solid stack. We use Pardot, we use Salesforce, we use SalesLoft, Chili Piper, Gong.
What's that?
Chili Piper?
Yeah.
Chili Piper is a scheduling tool that integrates both with our round robin and like our SDRs use it to schedule demos, and it'll do the round robins for us automatically.
Oh, wow.
And in short time here, I'm not going to give you a timeline, and I'm not going to tell you why, because there's secrets brewing at
Oh, you
RFPIO.
got to have
But
your own secrets for sure.
in the not too distant future, it will actually be something that certain folks, when they come to our requested demo form, will actually be able to schedule their own demos. So we'll have a targeted list of accounts that we really want to talk to. And if they come, we're going to accelerate their journey by having a Chili Piper scheduling little bit on the form for them.
That sounds like some ABM wizardry. Have you like fully embraced all that is ABM?
We are, yeah, ABM is definitely a strategy we have at play.
Now, what I like about this conversation so far is that you're not one to like mince words or like use random marketing bullshit. So like, what's your take on ABM? Is it?
I think ABM is a great strategy for certain companies. I think it's a strategy. I don't think it's a way of life, right?
Okay.
I don't think it's, ABM or die. I don't think it's ABM, all ABM or none. It is one strategy we deploy to reach very specific accounts that we believe would be great beneficiaries of our solution. Other than that, we also do your more casting of a net marketing, if you will, right? Where we have ICPs and we go after them the more traditional marketing route.
That makes sense. I love how you said that it's not like a way of life. Some people like getting the ABM tattoos, and it's like, guys, you still have to. It's like business as usual. You don't just stop doing everything. Sales is like, where are the leads at? You're like, no. We're doing a couple different things at the same time. Going from it at that point, that makes sense.
It's funny. I've seen an emergence, though. One of the effects, I think one of the questions you're going to ask me, I might be getting ahead of us here, but the pandemic has had is people are desperate for something that will work, right? They're searching for, in this environment, what in my strategy repertoire can I pull out and apply that will work in this environment, because it's so new and just so different. So ABM has had, another time in the spotlight, and I don't know. I think it has far more to do with your buy life cycle, your prospects, what works for them, and then how is your marketing set up, right? For us, ABM works really well. We have, we have a very defined ICP. We know who our buyer is. We know what they want. That we know what they want to know and what they need to know, and we have content that they care about. And so it's pretty easy to kind of stitch together.
Mm-hmm.
A nice ABM play, but there's a lot of those pieces that if not there, you're going to try it and you're going to be, the first person to say, well, ABM doesn't work. Well, it was it ABM, right? Was it the strategy? And it's not for everybody.
Sure.
But I also think that there's probably a fair amount of times that the strategy wasn't the constant.
Mm-hmm. I think ICP is a big deal. Who is my ideal customer? People
it's
don't
amazing
know
to
that.
me how many people don't know that exactly, right?
Yeah. Any tips for them?
Show up to a debate, you got to do some research.
Right. I mean, how do you get to that, and how do you get to an ICP you can stand by?
Yeah. I mean, like most marketing, can't carve it into stone. I think ICP is something you need to continually revisit and check and refresh. It will get stale like anything else. But if you're starting at zero, take a look at who has bought from you and what you know about those people. Where did you first meet them? What demographic and firmographic information do you know? What do you know about their motivations and why they came to you and what they were looking for? And then just test, right? I'm also a big believer in don't try and figure out every little detail and get to perfection. It will be the barrier to action. And so, learn what you can and start moving, and then refine and optimize as you go. And as you learn more, back to that form question, maybe that's where you ask smart questions, right? Get the demographic, firmographic details that you can, and then learn as you go. Ask smart questions, use those to layer in, right? Create better and better experiences. And over time, I think you'd have a really strong ICP.
Have you seen any signals? I mean, I like the idea of just go for it, but then be thinking about ways that you can modify and change it, not set in stone. What kind of signals could I be looking for? Maybe this isn't a question you can answer, but like, how do you refine that? Or like, should you be on the lookout for certain kind of feedback? Or have you ever, have you pivoted the ICP any, and anything you can kind of share with us around that?
Just enough of a data nerd that I think sometimes I annoy my team, so I can kind of answer that. I think sometimes I will take just one example and I'll say, let's follow this all the way back, right? And let's learn everything we can about this one deal. This was a great deal. It turned out exactly like we want. The outcome was perfect. Now, can we trace that back and understand very specifically, not all of our data, not everybody's journey, just this one, and what can we learn from what happened there, right? And what might apply to other companies like them or other buyers like them.
Huh. I love that. Yeah. I say
Start
I love
small.
that sometimes too much, but I literally love that. The idea of just tracing it back and giving yourself permission to say, this sounds great. And it's like, this deal was large. This customer stayed with us. They're happy. We're happy serving them. We're all happy. Where the hell did this come from? Let's go see if maybe
Exactly.
more. And like, what made them magic too? Sometimes I feel like we just default to like industry. Like, oh,
Yep.
we'll get more of this industry. I don't know if that's too simple.
Exactly. I mean, there's probably some lessons that can be aggregated, right? There are some things that all finance companies have in common. But I think when we want to be really personalized, when we want to uncover some of those, I hate the term magic bullets, but if you're looking for that type of needle in a haystack, you're not going to find it with broad strokes, right? You got to look at those really great experiences and say, okay, what was it about this that stands out? And maybe it's nothing. And I think that's the permission, right? You have to be okay with the fact you might trace it all the way back and go, yep, looks pretty normal.
Right.
That might be the health check, right? And other times you're going to trace it back and you might find one piece of information that you're like, wow, I didn't realize that, right? I didn't realize that people were asking that question, or that person got involved at that play in the game, or, hey, you know what? We've never talked to this person in an organization, and with this customer, they're pretty heavily involved. Maybe there's a new persona there for us.
Right. Okay. Great. You are just a tome of knowledge.
I mean, after that introduction, you set the bar on the ceiling, so I've been jumping ever since.
I did, and thankfully you've risen to the occasion. So there's one other thing we were chatting about, and I'd love to get your take on it, the idea of, now that you're just smashing stuff, and it sounds like you don't care what people are saying, like, let's just say the truth. Let's talk about technology. Yeah, people buy this stuff all the time, imagining it's going to like magically solve their problems, and it doesn't.
Speaking of silver bullets, right? Yeah. Technology is very rarely a silver bullet. I mean, I think people buy technology to solve problems, and I know that I'm probably going to get a call from my CEO right after saying this, but
Sure.
Technology does not by itself solve problems. You have to do the work before you make the purchase, and doing the work before even making the decision to which purchase you're going to make, right? To have a strategy and have a process in place, that's how you decide what software you even need and what software is going to align really well. I spent many years helping people untangle custom and hacked messes of tech stacks. And I think I can with confidence say 90+% of the time, they bought because they knew somebody, or they bought because they believed it was going to be, this magical thing. I don't have a sales process, so I'll buy Salesforce. Well, Salesforce isn't a sales process, it's sales technology. Right. Unless you have a process that it can help support, it's not going to do what you need it to do. And then you're going to be frustrated and you're going to blame the tool, and you're going to jump to a competitor, and 2 years is going to go by and you're going to have the same problem.
Yeah. I see it all the time. You're right. You have to have that strategy first. What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to do with it? Fit into the process, and then it's like put it last. But I think, the tech, all the marketers selling tech, like we all kind of like are putting this out there. But I think, I don't know. Can we fix that? Can you fix that trend, or is it just people kind of make these mistakes until they learn from them? Because I've done it.
I mean, you could fix it. I would say there's maybe an ROI that needs to be calculated on fixing it, right? I mean, we're here to sell software. So how do we monetize teaching someone to do their homework first. Certainly you'd see it in the advocacy, you'd see it in the retention, of those customers, because you'd have way more happy customers if they did their homework up front. Maybe in smarter sales questions, right? Do you have a sales process? Walk me through what your process is today to help buyers at least be thinking about it, right? Perhaps through onboarding processes, we could help put some things through. When I had an agency, we coined the phrase business process review, BPRs, right? It was our onboarding step to say, most of our customers haven't documented their process. And if they did, it was, years ago, and it's old and antiquated. So let's start there. Start by educating us with what your workflows look like within your teams and what those handoff points look like. Selfishly, it was why we were successful, right? It allowed us to do a good job. And so I guess, maybe that's the answer. Maybe software companies need to have a little bit of that consulting arm within their onboarding process.
Yeah. That, and if you don't, and you'll learn. I bought a PPC tool that I thought would just manage all of our AdWords, and it doesn't. It just tells you how your AdWords is doing, but it doesn't make the campaign.
Which is probably not doing very great if you didn't have a good strategy going into it, right?
Right. It doesn't know why your ads are terrible. Can't tell you how to fix it. We ended up hiring a PPC expert to use the software to do the ad campaign. And it was like, oh, okay, now it works. Where do you see all this going? Where do you see anything coming around the bend in the future? Are you also an oracle of the future? Where are buyers changing? I mean, we talked at the beginning. Some of them are staying the same. Things are staying the same, but some things are different. What do you see changing around?
Yeah. I'm not an oracle of the future. I'm as dependent on
I will decide that
on time as everybody else. But where, my opinion, where I think we're going, I think we're starting to see an awareness. I don't know if we can blame it on the pandemic. I don't know if we can blame it on just, decades of doing the same thing over and over and finally realizing that the bruise on our head is not going to go away unless we stop banging it. But we're starting to get smarter about technology purchases. People are starting to ask the right questions. They are realizing that there's this connection between the people, the process, and the technology. They're looking for more simple solutions and more, the pendulum used to be in big multi-solution platforms, and we swung to all of these point solutions, and you saw Scott Brinker's landscape blow up to where you couldn't even read it anymore. And now that pendulum is starting to land somewhere in the middle where we're being smart about it. We're not looking for one solution to do everything, but we do want to consolidate solutions for different teams or different work streams. And so I think, 2021 hopefully is a year that marketing gets a little wiser. We actually can use all of this amazing data and tech that we've created in a way to really be personal and really, talk to the people we want to talk to, but stop wasting our time and others' times with gated content, to go full circle, and, technology that is just automating a bad process.
And when you said that people are getting smarter in their purchases, what you're doing in your style of marketing is the proof of that. You're not putting, the kid gloves on. You're not walking them through like they're babies. You're saying, here's all the content. We'll give you some subtle reminders out there in the ethos, but we're not going to bludgeon you to death with email and then, force you to hop on these calls. Like, be a big kid and make the right decision. Here's all the information you need.
I think buyers want that, though. I think the best software feels more like a partnership than a purchase, right? So my job is with RFPIO, right? I want a purchase of RFPIO to feel like you just got a really strong partner in managing your response process. And if we accomplish that, then we've accomplished what I've set out to do. I don't want it to be a purchase. I don't want it to just be this transaction of, I bought a tool, right?
Mm-hmm. That the transaction that, like we like the simplicity and the beautiful friction-free process of B2C these days, but we don't want to be treated like a number. We don't want to be treated like a cog on a machine factory. you know?
Well, in SaaS too, I mean, then you get into this hamster wheel of more and more and more, right?
Yeah.
If, in fact, I just sent the stat to a really good friend of mine who's doing some research on it, but I think it was something like 70% of SaaS customers are currently considering a switch to the competition. Like, that's crazy.
Wow.
70%.
Wait, 70?
Um, yeah,
Jeez.
it was. In fact, I just sent it to her here. I'll read it. It was 70% of buyers report they are strongly considering ditching their preferred vendors for a competitor. That was 360 Magazine published that.
Jeez.
And so that should be sobering to all of us in SaaS, right? That
Yeah.
nearly 3 out of 4 of our customers are looking to leave, right? So we aren't, it doesn't feel like a partnership if they're ready to bail. You don't bail on a partner. A partner is
Right.
in it with you, right? You're
Right.
up to the waist together. They've bought a solution, they've checked a box, they've had a transaction if they're that willing to go.
It's not a partnership. What is it if it's not a partnership? It's a transaction.
I mean, it's just a transaction, just a purchase, right? I mean, if and it's probably very similar in the B2B and B2C world. If I go buy something at the store and I just walk into Best Buy and I take the thing home, I'm going to have no emotion about returning it when I'm not pleased with it.
Oh yeah.
Um, but
At
if
all.
if I get it from a good friend of mine, right, and there's relationship there and there's emotion there, and by taking it back, I'm saying, I know I said this was going to work for me, but it's not going to. Back to that relationship model. When you have to
Yeah.
break up with someone, there's emotion, right? Even if you're happy, even if it's the right decision, you're not happy about it usually.
Right.
And so partnerships aren't that easily broken, not 70% of the time.
Jeez. It ties into like being commoditized as well, right? Like I will go to whatever gas station. I don't usually shop the prices, but if I can see the sign, I don't really care what brand of unleaded
Exactly.
gasoline. Like I'll go to you. I'll go to you and to get into that. And I once heard a quote. I don't know who said it, but how they find you is also how they'll leave you. If they
Oh,
found you,
interesting.
yeah, if they found you and you were a commodity sale, that's exactly how they'll leave you. If they found you as, in a partnership and you taught them strategy and all these things, it'll be someone else teaching them the same kind of things that brings them away.
Yeah, I mean, everything we're talking about really is about that customer experience, right? I mean,
Right.
whether it's a gated piece of content or, the nurture and the email strategy you know, or this notion of like, is it a transaction? Did they find you through a transactional method and they're going to leave you the same way? I think if we do a good job and we focus on what that customer experience is from their very first interaction with us, through content,
Mm-hmm.
all the way through their customer experience and how we take care of them as part of our fold. Then I think we are a partnership. Then I think we've achieved that partnership status.
Right. Right. And partnership, family, those things aren't, those are relationships that are strong. You got to keep them up though. They can fade.
They can. All relationships take work, right?
Right.
Whether it's a business relationship, customer to company, whether it's friendships, whether it's business
Friendships.
colleagues, they all take work. Right? Think about the
Yeah,
pandemic. We've all been isolated for 7 months. The people you haven't talked to, you feel distant from, right?
yeah,
But those that matter the most, you're texting and you're calling and you're dealing with another hour on Zoom just to hear their voice and see their face.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. You're doing a happy hour on Zoom just
Yeah.
for some kind of connection or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've got all these experiences. My next question really is like, who are you? Who are you? How did you become this sage of all things marketing? Can you take me back to like little Angie days? What was it like? Where'd you grow up? Did you always know you're gonna be in marketing?
I did not. I wasn't always in marketing. Yeah, I mean, little Angie was not that different from grown up Angie. Funny you should ask that. I came across a letter recently for the first time. At my age, you don't find things in your family for the first time very
Right.
often. But a cousin got a hold of me through Ancestry.com, ironically, and shared a letter that my Nana had wrote to her Aunt Marion following my great grandmother's passing. She described me in that letter in the same way that a lot of I think my business colleagues today would describe me. Except for the fact that she did call me precocious, which I'm not really sure as a grown up you can be precocious. But I'm curious. I ask lots of questions. I'm rarely willing to accept anything at face value, right? I feel like there's always more. And so, yeah, I mean, was I always, destined for marketing? No, I had an entire career as an executive assistant before I went into marketing.
Really?
The pervasive quality though is I'm a nurturer and I'm a caregiver, right? And so I think that shows up in my personal life. It shows up in my friendships, shows up in my work relationships. You can't get away from being an empath, I suppose.
Wow. So what? Okay. So take me back. So school. You went to school.
I did go to school. Yes, not online school either. We went in a classroom.
Right.
We said the allegiance.
Okay. And so what did you study? You studied, I don't know. What did you study?
What did I study? International business.
Okay.
I have always had a mind for business. I will say that. I grew up with my grandmother raised me, so I grew up with a working parent. She ran personnel, which for those young people, that's HR. But I would go to work with her. I learned how to type on a typewriter at a very young age when I couldn't even really reach the typewriter. She would boost me up so that I could reach it and bang away on the keys.
Was it the regular or electric?
Regular at first. It did get upgraded to the electric one with the erase function, which was really cool as a little kid.
So it had a built-in erase strip on it?
Yeah, when you hit backspace, it would use almost like whiteout in the shape of the key. It was pretty modern technology of the time.
I had to you use like whiteout, or you put the little strip in there and have it like punch over top of it. Wow.
Yeah, and when you use the whiteout, you had to blow because the key would smudge the whiteout otherwise. Yeah, that was phase one. Then we got really cool typewriters. But I spent time walking like the assembly line. It was an engineering company and manufacturing, and so I was really exposed to business and how things worked. And maybe that's where my curiosity stems from, right? Is just seeing kind of the inside. And then, fortunate enough to be an EA for a long time, got to see what it was like at the executive level and hear the hard conversations happening and help them prepare for the board meeting. And I think that whet my appetite a little bit for wanting more and more. And here I am.
Well, I love that, it's like the basic beginnings. You can do anything from anywhere, from any position. And sometimes it's those positions that nobody even looks at that is where you're learning all the things because you're connected to all the parts and pieces, and then you can grow from there.
Yeah.
Man,
Agreed.
now you're the boss. Now you're the marketer.
Not the ultimate boss. I have a boss. Sure. I have an awesome boss.
We all have bosses. Now, I have a bit of a hypothetical question for you.
I'm ready.
I may have a time machine in my backyard here in New Hampshire. And after COVID lets you use it, it's basically in the backyard covered by a tarp, squirrels on it and everything. If you can use this time machine, we'll clear it off. You can use a time machine and go back in time, but it's a specific time that it goes to. It goes to a couple days after you graduate, a couple days after you're out of school and you get started with your career. If you could go back and talk to yourself at that particular point in time, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
I would tell myself to pay more attention to the people in the journey than the journey itself. I know that's probably pretty heavy for a marketing podcast.
No, bring on the heaviness. That's what everyone's
one of the, I would say, consequences of being very curious and very eager and is that I was also very assertive, right? I came up in a time where while women had, definitely a place in the workplace, we were still finding our place in the workplace, and it wasn't always equal and it wasn't always easy. And so you get this grit about you and you have to work a little bit harder than everybody else. And emotion didn't used to belong in the workplace, right? It was
Right.
you strive to be unemotional. You know, you didn't want to be the emotional woman in the room. And I think that put a mindset in me that as it became acceptable, you still weren't ready to recognize it. And there was an edginess and probably a too assertiveness to young Angie. That if I had softened and recognized the people and taken time to thank the people along the way, um, would have gone a little bit, would have gone a long way.
Yeah, it's the people we encounter that we don't even expect that end up being little mini springboards for us at different places. And
So true.
when you're in it, you don't even necessarily recognize what's happening until after. And you're like, wow, I could be somewhere completely different if I hadn't had that opportunity, that mentoring, that
Yeah.
coaching, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I mean, courtesy of LinkedIn, I've been able to go back and thank a few of those people and
Oh,
let them know
nice.
the impact they had too, right? Which is awesome. I'm grateful for that, but nothing like saying thank you in the moment.
Absolutely. I need to go thank Tim. Tim really helped me in college. So I'm gonna go thank him after this podcast. And people listening, who should you go thank? Go thank someone because of this. You need to thank some people from your career or somewhere, somehow. It's a great reminder to go back and pay more attention to the people than the journey. Boom. There it is.
Boom.
Grazia. Prego. This is fantastic. This is fun. This is fun. So
It was fun. It was really fun.
and we didn't do any Italian. So you're learning Italian? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, so early on in the pandemic and in the lockdown, I sort of made this mental decision that if we were going to go through this, I was going to come out the other end better than I went in. And so I have been more dedicated to riding my Peloton than ever before. So hopefully from a health perspective, I come out a little healthier than I went in. And as a skill set, I really wanted to learn Italian. I am Italian. I have traced my family roots all the way back to Calabria, Italy. So one of the first places I want to travel when we're allowed to get on airplanes and go places again is going to be back to where my family,
Yeah.
set sail for the U.S. And I thought, if you're going to wind up in Italy, you might as well know some Italian.
Oh, yes. Yes. And, enough to even be polite, but if you can take it a little bit further, yeah, it just kind of enriches the whole experience. So which tools have you been trying? Which different apps and whatnot? Books?
There is a podcast called Coffee Break Italian that I have been listening to. And I blocked time on my calendar 3 days a week because if it's not on my calendar, it almost never happens.
Agree.
I definitely need to put it there. So I block time 3 times a week to listen to, I think it's a 45-minute podcast. And it takes
Wow.
you very conversationally. So it'll start with the basics of hello and greetings and kind of build on what a conversation would be like. So it's not taking you through the alphabet and conjugation and, the way that, I learned French growing up in school. So it's not the way that we learned French in high school. It's far more of a, maybe a traveler's version of language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want kind of like the slangy local, you don't want to sound like a textbook. Hello, I am
Exactly.
saying hello to you. Like, okay, weirdo.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that the Italians are really welcoming if you give it a try. So
true.
Hopefully, even if I sound like a robot, they'll be embracing and loving.
I think most people, I know France gets a bad rap for this, being like, oh, it's terrible French. But I never got that when I was in France. I was like, oh, they're actually really nice. Mostly because I don't know any
Same.
French other than bonjour, au revoir, and merci, and right. And so just enough to be polite, but right, but like nothing else. So I wasn't like I was trying to be an imposter, but I think they all appreciated it. But yeah, different countries. I think everyone really appreciates it, even if you do sound a little goofy. I actually was in a taxi or Uber back in the day when we had Ubers. Remember those things? These Ubers you could get in a car.
Yeah.
You travel around the world.
On your phone. I think there was just an app. You just said, I need to go somewhere.
Back in the day when we can get out of our houses. And the driver, it was in New York City, and the driver, I think was Chinese. Yeah, no, for sure was Chinese, had a sign, a placard saying like, hi, don't really speak good English. Can't really tell you anything. But hi, nice to meet you. Here's my name. I'm Chinese or whatever. And so I love languages. So in the car, I was like, okay, let's brush up on our Chinese real quick. Let's brush up on our Chinese. So I was, and I was like, ni hao, like something. And the driver's like, what? So it was like, it kind of made a day. And I'm sure it was terrible.
So you and I,
yeah.
we definitely need to grab other times. So I did the same exact thing on
Did
the way
you?
to the Burbank airport once. I don't remember what language the driver spoke, and I don't think they had a sign. We tried to communicate, and he knew enough English to tell me that he didn't know English. So I asked him
Sure.
what language he spoke, and I was using Google Translate on my phone to try and give him directions at the airport. So I was trying to tell him where to drop me off, but I was
Wow.
trying to do it in his native language, and it could have been a comedy routine. So it wasn't as kind and considerate as your example, but similar. Yeah,
Google
it was.
Translate though. That's a great idea. Now, did you have it talking or did you talk? Did you try to say what you read?
So it has a listening function. So he would talk in his native tongue, and it would listen, and then I would read
What?
what he had just said, and then I would talk in English, and then it would say it back to him
Did it
in
work?
his. So it was sort of the translator between us. It worked enough. Yeah, it worked enough. It
Wow.
was a little clunky, but it got the job done.
Wow. You know, sometimes this is cool. It sounds like we can, if we both go out to dinner, some event or something, we'll just, and the like waiters, like different countries, like, oh, let's do this. Let's do this. We
Oh
got
my God, it
this.
would be so fun.
Okay, you order. I'll say thank you. You got this word. I got this word. One of my
Yeah.
favorite experiences was I used to fly a lot. You know, back then when you could fly, back in the day.
Cute.
Yeah. So it was a business trip to Japan, and I used to love doing like a Pimsleur audio tape on the flight over. And
Okay.
Japanese, I could pick up. German, I could not. If I ever need to fall asleep,
Wow.
putting on Pimsleur German, the
German.
words are so long, it knocked me out. I woke up and I was in like Frankfurt. Like, what happened? I don't know. Pimsleur. But the
But
Japanese one,
Japanese.
Japanese, and what I really liked there was this phrase, something like iyo tenki desne, which is like slang for like, it's nice out, it's a nice day out, um, and I like that. I like the fact that they said this is slang for. I was like, oh, cool. This is like the people's language, not
Yeah.
textbook. And I remember, we sort of dropped that, but I'm in the offices. We're training all day. We go for lunch. I wanted to say that phrase, but I forgot it. We get outside. We're walking to lunch. I look up. Sky above Tokyo is beautiful blue with white clouds. It was a beautiful day. And then my brain goes, hey,
Click.
here's that word you were looking for earlier. So I looked to my
Nice.
counterpart and I was like, iyo tenki desne. And the response is like, so desne. Like, yes, it is.
Yeah.
And the biggest compliment he paid me was, did you study Japanese in college? Did you study it in school?
Oh,
And I was like,
wow.
no, the flight over.
No, but I'm going to sit a
But
little
thank
taller right
you.
now. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like all
That's
glowing
awesome.
from that. It's fun connecting with people. And I guess
It really is.
the harder it is, the better.
Yeah, I mean, it's putting an effort in, not much different
Yeah.
than marketing, right? We want to know that someone
Effort.
tried, and then they're not just making us another generic person.
Which I think counts in marketing, it counts in life, it counts in
Life.
relationships, putting in the effort a little bit, right? Getting the
A
data
little bit
right,
goes a long way.
getting the content right, just like not the signal saying like, you don't really matter. You're a number. We don't really care about you. You're just in the machine now. It's like, no, we do care about you.
Yeah.
I want you to know that. Yeah. Man. How's it going? That's pretty impressive. You've been listening to that for how long now?
Well, 6 months.
Holy
Impressive that
cow.
I've been listening maybe for 6 months. The confidence is not there yet.
Gotcha.
So it'll come, I'm sure.
Nothing like going over there and using it to practice it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I studied French for 8 years, 8 ans, and I
Wow.
And I still struggle to, somebody will say, well, say something. And I'm like, but I went to Paris for 3 days and it just all sort of flowed. Right. And I just sort of got around, and there was a couple of moments where, I asked, questions that weren't quite right, or, what have you. But for the most part, I got by for the 3 days without pretty much any English at all. So I think, immersion, once you're there and you need it,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, it's okay to it's better to fumble through this than to not try at all.
Yeah.
So maybe the Italian will happen when I land in
I think so.
Naples.
I think so. Had you been to France before, or Paris?
I had not. That was my first time.
When was that?
Yeah. Gosh, my first trip to Paris, I want to say was
How many times have you been now? Have you been a couple
7
times?
years ago. I've been only 2 or 3 times. I want to say the first time was like 7 years ago.
Oh, geez.
I'm ballparking. I've just been really lucky so my husband works for Nike. We end up in Amsterdam for work for him, or we'd end up there for me. I worked for a company once. We had an office in Bucharest, Romania. So Amsterdam was sort of the go-between. And France is such an easy train ride. You just hop on and then you take the high-speed train down to Paris. And so you're there in a matter of a few hours. And yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I just went to Paris recently, like last year, and I was kind of worried because you hear all these things, like freedom fries and all this, like they're mean. And no, I immediately got it. I was like, okay, culture is all about wine and good food and experience and like life and the journey and the people around you on it.
Very relaxed.
Yeah, it's not
very relaxed, very accepting.
Yeah, exactly. It's less about the deal. It's like going out to a business lunch in France. Like, sign me up. That was not TGI Fridays.
No, it was not. And not a lot of business gets discussed, right? I mean, it's actually relationship building done the right way.
The right way. Yeah. And then it's a real serious conversation to figure out what wine you're going to order. Like, people are like, oh, let's get water. It's a work day. No. That's it. But the guy, they're like, oh, no. Let's have so-and-so order the wine. Where's he from? Bordeaux. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
He's from a place named after a wine. Let's have him pick the wine. And they pick, the wines, and it was great. I'm like a new fan. I think because the contrast of like what I was expecting was like, I don't know. I want to go to like what I experienced was like so dramatic. It's really like number 1 on my list now, which is wild.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really Did you see the Eiffel Tower at night, the way it sparkles?
Yes. We had a place right
Isn't that
nearby,
fun?
like a block away, and the sparkling.
I didn't know that it did that before I saw it.
Oh, really?
And I was like, what is that? Like, for whatever reason, I just had no idea. And so when we were out for a walk and I saw it and I went, oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
It really is. Really is. And what's interesting is you can't videotape it. You can't record it. Yeah. So you can't, apparently it's a trademarked image of the sparkling Eiffel Tower. If you take a photo of it, the French government comes after you with like that's our copyright.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Which is maybe why you've never seen it or heard of it. And I hadn't really.
Yeah.
Even in movies, you can't show it sparkling, or you have to pay money. But you know what I found? It's way bigger in real life. The Eiffel Tower is huge. It
is huge.
Enormous. And in the pictures, you're like, oh, the cute little iron tower. No. This thing is gigantic.
Massive.
Like, I don't even know how to describe how big it is.
Yeah, well, there's a whole park underneath it.
Yeah.
Right? Under those arches, there's a whole park. So
yeah. And there's restaurants like 30% the way up with ice cream.
Yep.
It's crazy. You could walk up. Did you walk up or take the elevator?
I took the elevator. We went all the way to the top. It was really windy. It was quite a blustery day, so we didn't stay long.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. So I'm a big fan, and we could go again all the time. I mean, the museums.
I've only been to Europe in November, which is
really
the most fascinating thing to me because it's not on purpose.
Right.
But I've only ever been anywhere in Europe in the month of November.
It's got to be cold though, right? Like it's
always cold. It's always cold and rainy.
Oh, geez.
Or snowy. So I've seen all the ice rinks. I've seen all of the Christmas bazaars. I would be over the moon after all of this pandemic to do some summer traveling though, I think.
Definitely. I think that's got to be high on the list for sure. Well, hey, where are some of the places people can connect with you?
Yeah, the best place, like I said, I consume content on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So,
Okay.
I think it's / Angela and Earl. I'm on Twitter. My handle's Jai Ho, which means be victorious. Little
I like that.
personal mantra there. But yeah, those are the two best channels: LinkedIn,
Awesome.
Twitter.
And it's RFPIO is your site that we were mentioning. Go check out this model of marketing behavior done the right way.
Thanks so much for having me, Casey. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And what about the podcast? Do you want to do a shout out for that? You think you might pick that up? I know it was first season, I think. Do you think you might bring that
Yeah,
back?
we did season 1. We skipped season 2 for the pandemic. I think we are going to be bringing it back in a delayed season 2. So MarTalk Podcast, place where marketers come to share cool things, much like here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you should totally get back into it. You're a blast to talk to. I love how you just slay myths left and right, and no room for BS. I mean, that's how I act as well.
Life's too
So
short.
yeah, right. Well, we're gonna link to that podcast for sure. So if you do anything, people can go subscribe to it on Spotify. Have it ready. So if you start releasing stuff, they're ready to go. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. This has been a blast.
Yeah, ditto.
Don't be a stranger. We'll have to have you come back on in wintertime or something. Maybe in November when you're in Europe again.
Yeah, we'll do it from Paris.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we'll get in the private jet, right? The $8 billion, the $1 billion private jet.
Yeah.
Paris, like
your Falcon will take us to Paris.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. How do you know? That's the jet for sure. Yeah.
Yep.
So fantastic. Well, for those people listening, if you learned something, and I know you did because I have 2 pages of notes front and back over here, then share this episode with someone. Be a thought leader. Tag myself, tag Angela, like put a shout out there, but put what you learned, your takeaways on there. Share it with everyone else. Be a thought leader. And with that, thank you again so much for being on here. It was a blast.
It was. Thanks for having me, Casey.
Absolutely. For those people listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.